Is that working? Oh. Hey, it is. Is that working? Hey, it is. Is that working? Right. Hey, it is. Right. Hi. Name's Volteripal. This is my Gamedev stream. And I'm basically doing this as a way to get myself to work on the game consistently, rather than slack off on it, which is what I do a lot. But yeah. So far, I'm making, in Unreal Engine 5, I'm making a wave-based shooter with some roguelike elements. And I guess first I'll go through what I've done so far. So far I've got the spawning done, I've got the shader I kind of want implemented into the game, so it'll have the kind of style I want it to have. I've got the enemies spawn in, you can shoot them, they can die, and the wave system is working. At the end of each wave, you'll get to pick a different card. Say I go this one, and now with the bullets. Well, that's the reload one. Now, when I reload, I have to deal damage to enemies in a radius around me. It's very early in development, despite me working on it for about a year, because I have just not really gone around to deal with it, unfortunately. But yeah, and that's kind of it. It's really early on in development. It's going to get better, hopefully. I have also made the basis of a map. First person blueprint, no. Maps. Map 1. And in here I've got like everything kind of all planned out, except there are some areas that need some work, which I'm probably going to be doing this session. Because at the moment, it does need a lot of testing, this map, to make sure if it's actually fun. But this is kind of like the layout I was thinking. Kind of like a big circular map which you can loop around. And so far I've got it set up so depending on where you are, you could be here, and enemies will spawn in here, and if this wall here is gone, they also spawn over here and come to you. Out my throat. And basically every single enemy in the game can come, like, every enemy can spawn in adjacent rooms, as well as the room you're in, to stop it feeling like they're only coming from the room that you're in. It makes it a bit more realistic, a bit better. Because otherwise, I'll check how loud that is. Because otherwise, I'll check how loud that is. Might otherwise turn that down. Yeah, there we go. Oh shit, hi Jacob. Oh, shoot, you should have said that. Yeah, there we go. Hello, Lemon. Oh shit, hi Jacob. Oh, shoot, you should have said that. Yeah, there we go. Hello, Lemon. Oh shit, hi Jacob. Oh, shoot, you should have said that. Yeah, there we go. Hello, Lemon. Oh shit, hi Jacob. Oh, hello, Lemon. Oh shit, hi Jacob. Festival convenient. I'll pass on that. Festival convenient. I'll pass on that. But yeah. So the game's currently not that far ahead in development. I'm planning to get it a bit further ahead. But yeah. So the game's and that's kind of what the point of the stream is. It's just I'm planning to get it a bit further ahead. I've just realised I've still got my audio showing on the stream. And yeah, that's kind of the point of this whole stream, is to just work on a game. Also, hopefully, get some people in who are interested in it. Which probably won't be many because it's getting there. But yeah, there we go. I've got, like, as well, multiple enemies in at the moment. I've got 2... I've got the regular enemy, which at the moment is just using a model from Mixamo, as well as this particle effect. Eventually, I'm going to replace this guy with something a lot cooler. It's just not implemented yet. My monitor is glitching out like mad. Every time I'm moving my mouse on this monitor, my other monitor, which I'm not streaming on, just keeps turning off. Why? But yeah, got enemies. We've also got where is it? Enemy ranged. This, which at the moment is just a ball, is going to be like an eye with a shadowy kind of flame tower coming out the bottom of it eventually. And what this enemy does, if I place him in, he should work, is he will... Did he work? Ah, yeah. So he will teleport around and shoot at the player, although he's not working because I placed him in rather than spawned him in. No, he should work. Why isn't he working? Let me try to test it. Maps. First person map. I'm not sure what's going on with the pathing right there. Or there. Oh, I think that's where these used... They used to have islands there, but I don't anymore. It should have rebuilt. There we go. So they spawn in after wave 5, and the wave system on this is a right weird pain in the ass. I don't know if I've done it the best way, because at the moment I've got... Where is it? First, it's in the game mode. It's handled all in the game mode. So this is all the kind of code just for the wave system here. And this is for a different thing here. This is the teleporter, which I'll show in a sec. But at the moment, we've got the wave system. So at the beginning, this was when I was trying to make the game multiplayer. The game is not going to be multiplayer at this point because it is not... Its multiplayer is hard to implement. Like, a lot harder than I thought it would be. I was doing fine with it until basically you wouldn't. Yeah, it just wouldn't. What was the problem with it again? Ah, yeah. So the problem with it was when an enemy would hit the player. The enemy could hit the player fine, but you couldn't hit the enemies until the host player, because it was like client-side hosting. When the host player saw you hit the enemy, that was when you could... Only if they were looking could you hit them. So you'd have two players, one would be like looking this way, one would be looking this way. And the enemy would be here. If this player's like the host, and he's shooting the enemy... the host could always hit the enemy, and the enemies would target both players even if the other one wasn't looking. But if the host wasn't looking, you couldn't damage any of the enemies for until the host the host had to see the enemy once before you could damage it. After he's seen them, you could be the other side of the map and the game wouldn't care. But I couldn't figure out a way of getting it so the enemy would spawn right without the host having to see it. And there was very little help online about that issue, so to kind of get the game moving along, I shelved it. I might return to multiplayer later. I really do want to, because it's a wave-based shooter. They kind of work really well in multiplayer. But at the moment, it's just... yeah, not having it. It wasn't having it, so... but yeah. So we got the begin next round. Somewhere as you begin... I think there's a begin... yeah, here, there's begin play. Again, it's a bit of a mess. This is the joy of blueprints. Everything just kind of gets thrown around. So when the game starts, it gets the game reference. Selects the spawners. It'll populate the spawn pool. It sets the spawn wave timer. I've really got to figure out what's going on with my monitors. So when it selects the spawners, it does all this, where it gets every spawner available and checks if they're active. If they are active, I've just put that as a way to identify it. But if they're active, they'll stay in the pool. If they're not active, they get removed from the pool. And then it returns the length of actors. I don't know. Oh, that was just for a test thing. But yeah, once it's done, after it's selected all the spawners it will use, it populates the spawning pool. Which is kind of done by math. I was going to do a table so I could fine-tune each wave, but the problem with that is if, let's say, I want 100 waves of enemies, when you start getting to the lower waves, the lower wave you get, the harder it's going to get, obviously. The higher the wave, the higher it gets. And the problem is with doing it as a table is that, let's say... you can get to around 200. I have to go through and manually add 200 different enemy interactions. I know I can do it from Excel or Google Docs and import it in, but the problem with doing that is it's very... yeah. Doing it that way, it's very easy to just mess up and do it wrong. And Jesus Christ, that monitor. Okay, so every time I don't know what this is, and this happens a lot. Every time I'm moving my monitor, my thing here, my left monitor is just flashing, and even my right monitor. I think it's because it's using display stream compression, but I have no idea. It could be something to do with the fact that my left monitor is a 4K one. That might be it. It's not the monitor I'm using. This monitor here is 1440p, which I've turned to 1080p, so the stream works better. But yeah. So we got the current wave. We got the... depending on the enemy, so normal enemies are current wave times 5 and minus the current wave times 2. This is to try and... because I don't just want it to be like, oh, it's wave 1, we're going to have 5 enemies, then every wave I just add times that by 2, because A, it'll get too big too quick, and B, it's a bit too predictable. The Abyssal Towers, though enemies that teleport around and shoot, which I'm hoping I can get to work here, because they should be working fine. Or did I mess with their AI? I can't remember. They're supposed to look at me and shoot, but they're not. I think it could be because they're not spawning in naturally. If I go to the game state... because they spawn on any round past 5, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So if it's round 5 or higher, these enemies can start spawning. And it's a current wave minus times 2 minus the current wave. Which, thinking about it, would just be the fucking current wave, wouldn't it? What did I think I was tired when I made that. Yeah, I just realised that would just be the current wave. Because it's time to get by 2 and then just minusing it by itself. Why did I do that? I just put in the current wave for that one then. Oh, yeah. So now we've got normal enemies, current wave, boss type abyss towers. Move that there, make it a bit neater. So yeah, sets the enemies, gets number of enemies in a string, princess ring, gets the boss wave, sets the boss wave. So every wave, I couldn't figure out a better way of doing this. This is the most scuffed way. If I did wave tables, I could do this perfectly easily. But again, the problem with that is if there's ideally there's no theoretical limit to how high the waves can go. Which is why I want to do it by math rather than doing it by a table. Because if you do it by a table, there's effectively a set limit. Whereas if you do it by math, it can go theoretically infinitely. But at the moment you got a boss wave that every 5 rounds will occur. It does a countdown from round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4, round 5, and then every 5 waves it spawns it in, and it spawns in. It also takes note of how many boss waves have been. So the current boss wave will spawn 1 at the moment, and then when you go to boss wave 2, it will spawn 2 boss enemies in, and the boss enemies are. And these ones do bloody work. Melee. I can't remember if Abyssal Tank. Are these big boys? Okay, maybe they don't work. Did I also do it where they only spawn in? Ah, yeah, they only work if they're spawned. There is a reason why I disconnected that. I think it's because it caused issues when they spawned in naturally in the spawners. Bar that. Let's plumb him back in. So these guys will charge at you, which is kind of, so they're going to be slow hitters, and the whole way you're supposed to deal with these is you get them to charge into a wall, and then you can kind of rail on them. At the moment, they half work. So I can get them to charge, and then they'll do their animation. But what they're supposed to do is when they charge into a wall, they're supposed to do a stun. That doesn't work. Because this is kind of like AI at the moment. It goes, has a target, on a cooldown, blackboard based condition, charge player hit, wall. Does the animation montage. Hang on, have I done that wrong? Yeah, so it does, depending on what happens. If they get hit wall as set, it should be doing this one here. But the problem is hit wall never gets set. It's supposed to get set during this montage here if they hit a wall. I got the wind up animation, which at the moment launches the character forward, then they stop the chart, then they have the wind down animation, the end animation. If we go to the Abyssal Tank, turn that off. So where is it? Initialize. Where did I have it where they hit a wall? Or did I get rid of it because it never worked? The charge hitbox, which is this big box. This is the charge hitbox. And they hit something. If they hit a player, does damage. And launches a character. Right, I just got rid of the code that lets them work. Good job. Put that back in. Compile, save, do this. Spawn them in. So he basically, he'll charge into me, do a bit of damage, and knock me back. And that's kind of the gist of him. He's going to be a big kind of enemy. Similar to, if you've ever played zombies, the Panzer Soldats. The big, tanky enemies that come in. At the moment, he's super easy to kill. But in the final game, he will have a lot more health. I've just given him low health just to test if I can kill him. That's kind of the gist of it. Stop trying to autosave. But yeah, with a lot of enemies in this at the moment, there's bits and bobs that need improving. So the main enemies, the melee enemies, there's a problem that these guys have, which is at the moment A, they don't have their own model, but B, they kind of group up like very easily. Also, another thing, you can slide and you can sprint in the game. The gun is temporary; it's just a default stock gun. But yeah, if you see, they're kind of all grouping up, and this isn't so bad, but they kind of go in a line rather than spreading out, which is kind of what I want them to do. At the moment, I'm only using Unreal Engine's like default go-to node for their walking behavior, so that's why they're so basic. But later on, I do want to get them to actually have good behavior. Now, I do actually have it set up as well, where if you shoot in the head, you do more damage. If I can actually hit him in the head. And the weapon that you fire also has bullet spread. It also has a lot of... has bullet spread. It has a perk as well that will remove or reduce the bullet spread. At the moment, there isn't like a reticle indication of it. But you can see it's not always going to where my reticle is. So. Also, at the moment, the AI can't get up here because they're stupid. But yeah, so here, whilst these enemies are alive, I can show you how this teleporter works. In the map, you might have seen earlier, if you were here, that there was a part which seems completely separate to the main map. That's because it is. Basically, what's going to happen is you go on these teleporters to get to that side of the map. It's a completely sealed off area. God, sorry, I've got a bit of a cold. Completely sealed off area. It's a lot more condensed. It's a lot more tight packed. But the idea of it is that you can use it as an emergency getaway, because what will happen when you go on these teleporters is all the enemies will go back into the spawning pool, and then they'll come back out in this new area. I was kind of thinking about how I should go about doing that for quite a while, because I wanted the teleporter, but I didn't want to just teleport all the enemies as were over there, because considering how small some of the teleporter spots could be, because this is just the first map, I want to get one map out and then potentially make it more in the future. But considering how small the teleporter area was, if I just have all of these enemies like spawn in already there, you're gonna go there and you're just gonna get killed instantly. Whereas it gives you a slight bit of downtime before they start spawning back in again. And to make sure they don't abuse it, I'm going to add a cooldown, so you can't just run in and out of the teleporter infinitely. because that would be a bit broken. But yeah, so that's the teleport. These basically link up to each other. You got a link teleporter down here. And again, the spawning system at the moment is probably the thing that took a while to get working, because I had to, whilst I was making how the spawn select system worked, I came up with I kept encountering a bunch of edge cases. So you'd have it, so here, the spawning, so here, you've got 3 different kind of selections I can make, and I've made this dynamic, so I can just select any, I can go into a map, build it up, and do this kind of on the fly. So this, and this are all spawners. These are the spawning volumes. This is a barrier that the enemies might have to go over. So this is the spawner volume. I can tell it the adjacent room selector, which is this one here. I can link an obstruction to it, which are these. These are, if you've ever played COD Zombies, the classic go up and spend X amount of points to clear. And I can change these to be a blockade, a door, a pickup, or a use. I can change how many points they are, and if they have any blocked spawners, and also the linked volumes. And yeah, so I can basically go to this, get the linked obstruction, and because what I can do is, it will get the adjacent room, and then it will get all of that adjacent room's spawners. That's why I select the adjacent room, so I don't have to go this one. Can also use this one, but these ones are different. It can go, this is the room spawners, here's the adjacent room, and this is the adjacent room spawners. And what you can do, what this allows me to do, if I go to the blueprint, is it will, player enters a volume, it deactivates all the other volumes and sets itself to active. It also deactivates all the spawners on the map, which is why this is the problem, is this only works for a single player at the moment. So if I do make this multiplayer, I would have to rework this bit. The only way I can think of doing that would be when you leave the volume, it runs a check to make sure if any player is still in a different volume, and keep the one and those adjacent ones active. But that's going to be a bit, that's later on if we do that. Checks if there's a blockade between the adjacent room. So basically we'll gets the room spawners and sets those to active. Gets the adjacent and sets them to accessible as a fail-safe in case one side is open. Because what I found is when I did it a different way, if I had like this barrier gone, if I walked out and back into this area, it wouldn't reactivate this. So as a failsafe, this will set both of these room spawners to accessible at first. Then it checks if there's the obstruction, sets the linked volumes to not accessible, if there's any, if it's blocking any of the rooms. Then resets the current blockade. Has to reset the current volume because it is linked to the blockade. So if I have this blockade here, even though I'm in this volume, if I didn't have that, it would still think it was blocked off and wouldn't spawn anything. And then checks if potentially block spawners can spawn, which it goes through, sees if the room is accessible, and then it will get their room spawners and turn them on. Then it updates the things in the game. It's a very long-winded code, and it also has to rerun this whole section when you open the door. I will probably need to optimize some of this code as well, because it's not the most optimized thing at the moment. And yeah, can't remember what the big sphere is? Oh, that's the point light. Yeah, so at the moment, just for testing, I decided to give the currently active volume a light, and also a light on the spawners to help kind of highlight when they become accessible. So now, if I go over here, both of these are still open. If I open this door, now all three of them are. If I go here, only that's the adjacent room, so that one's open, this one ain't. It took a while to get all these things in. The main gimmick of this game, if you could call it that, I guess, is the perk system. And with that, I've got... So the perk system's a big, complicated kind of mess. is the best way of putting it. So I've got a data table full of all of the perks and what they the description of them. So you got your usual, move faster, deal more damage. Then you got some more interesting things like bullets heal you, fire chance on bullets, 5% chance to dodge enemy damage, which these all stack. So the idea is as you pick a card at the end of every round, you get that perk. It gives you a selection of 5, what is it for? Random cards. It gives you a selection of random cards, you pick one of the cards, and it'll keep going until you run out of cards. After that, it will just give you a card for bonus points. And you got perk data, so you got the perk name, description, the thumbnail of the perk, and the tier. And there's also the skill system component, which is surprisingly actually not that complicated. Because the event graph is completely empty. It's basically just got 2 functions. One which checks if the perk is unlocked. And one that adds a additional point of the perk. So if it finds the perk, it will get the current perk level and add 1 to it. And if it doesn't, it will give it the first level. At the moment, all the perk... I've only drew a few of the perk icons and they're very basic. I did this in like 5 seconds in Paint. Just to check if that part of the code was working. At the moment, most perks just have this question mark. A lot more than I probably should have is handled in the UI. So the perk button here, there's this whole big code. Because basically it needs to pick a random perk when this button appears. So when the perk window is open, it will link it. It will get the first person character as a reference. Because it needs the character reference. And it's got a function here where it updates the perk UI points and updates perk UI. Because when you run out of perks, it will just give you the points perk. But because of the way the data table would work, I can't add it to the data table and just have it as a perk. I have to have it as its own separate thing that can appear. So it will get the perk name from the update perk UI, which is from the perk random window. Because on construct, it will link the buttons, all 4 of the buttons, to this. And what linking the button does, it's a thing on the perk button. Got so many windows open. Link button basically links the perk window to the perk button, like blueprint, so these can now communicate. It gets the player controller, it gets the HUD, it gets the first person character, it gets the perk data table, and it gets all the available perks from the skill system component. So we get the perks available, we set the perk length, If there's no perks, it will do the perk UI points and basically give the option of the only perk button available will be having extra bonus points. I might change that for something else later. Don't know. If not, it gets 4 random numbers. The problem with these is they all have to be different. So, also it makes sure that it can do 4 perks. So if it's got more than 4 perks, it will do over 4. So it will be 4 and more. If it's only got 3, it will do random numbers for 3. If it's got 2, it will do random numbers for 2. If it's got 1, it will just do 1 random number. And because it has to do random numbers that are all separate from each other, it has to get perk length, random number in that length. So that's the perk length is how many perks there are. So it'll be like 5. And this will pick a random number from 1 to 5, which will each number is a different perk. And then it's got to do the same for the other one. And this can potentially loop a little bit because not completely, but it will loop. Might have to do this like 3 times. Because what it'll do is it will get a random number for perk 2. If it is the same as perk 1, then it will add 1, and then it needs to make sure it's not over the perk length. If it is, it gets set to 0, gets sent back, gets checked again, will then get added again. If it's a different one from perk 2, then it will go on. So perk 1, then perk 2 will check if it's the same as perk 1, then perk 3 will check if it's the same as perk 2, and then perk 3 and 1, and then perk 4 will check if it's the same as all 3. It's a bit of a mess, but this is the best way I could think of doing it. You've got the player reference, you've got the skills component, and then it updates the perk UI with the perk numbers, the available perk, and the set perk, and it's all a big goddamn mess. Yeah, and after that, it updates the perk on the perk window to basically set that perk as like, okay, so this is the number, so this is what the perk is, this is the perk button, and from that number, it gets the available perk, which then it can update the UI element of it, which will then get the number, which will turn it into the name and the row name. So we've got the name ID, we have the picture being set, we have the tooltip being set, which is from a perk tooltip, which is just this thingy here, and that gets set from perk data. It's a bit of a mess. It's a bit complicated, but it does work. At least in single player. And depending on how many buttons you've got, depending on how many perks you've got, depends on if these will be visible. Which is why this is basically set on 0 to 4. So if it's 4 or above, if I can remove that and just put it as default. But the default is it will go all the perks will be updated. Then this one's like 3 will be updated, 1 set invisible, 2 will be updated, 2 are set invisible, 1 will be updated, all set invisible. And of course if it's just the 1, it's just the single points one. I think that's kind of the gist of... Try to think if there's anything else I've missed to go over. I don't think so. At the moment, again, even though I've been working on this for probably about a year, on and off, very on and off, I've got a job, so it's hard to sit down and get myself into a focused mind, which is what this is. This is the kind of point of this stream. This is the first stream, though, so it's a bit more going over everything. Hey, this is that. The last thing is kind of the enemy and players status component and the damage component, which is a thing that still needs some tweaking because it doesn't fully bloody work like everything else in this goddamn mess. But we've got blueprints, we've got... Where is it? Skill system? First person character. So the weapon is actually handled in a weapon component. This is so I can potentially swap out the weapon later with a different weapon component. Or change the weapon component's stats. This is a convoluted mess. This literally looks like the back end of a server. Like a literal server, you know, with the wires are all going over each other. But, yeah. So we've got the fire. Goes into the line trace, which does all this math to get where this part does get in the forward line trace, and then this will randomly move that end point a little bit. Which is basically the bullet spread, depending on the value. So if it's 0, because it starts at 40 and it will go down by 10 every single time you buy the perk to reduce it. And eventually you just get bullets that just always go on a straight line. Was it goes down by 5? Can't remember. But it will go by 25 to 20. Anyway, it will reduce the bullet spread by enough so that when you're going down, it won't save. You can get it so it will just be a laser, basically. That's the kind of point of it. You can get it so when you shoot your gun, it will just be a laser. It will check if it's got crits. It will apply the crit damage. It will, if it is a crit shot. If it's not, it will just apply normal damage. Checks if you have the AOE kind of perk that gives different explosives depending on if you do or not. It will deal radial damage and draw a debug spear and spawn a systematic component. And then sets the end of the beam. You go back to the event graph, which is also a convoluted mess, because again, this is an Unreal blueprinting where everything's kind of big and like spaghetti. So we've got fire. If it's firing, it will kind of loop the montage for the firing over and over, which is if you hold down the left click and if you have the explosive perk on, it will make an explosion at where the bullet hits, regardless of... Oh, I accidentally hit. I hit the wrong key. It should be back. Yep, there we go. I accidentally hit the wrong key on my keyboard. Then I hit the end stream, the stream start and soon key. But yeah. There's a lot to this game which doesn't work fully. There's a lot to this game which is still work in progress. And there's a lot... At the moment, I'm also trying to get the visual side of it a bit more there. I've got the shader in, which I do like, although it has a few problems of its own. Like this, where it just glows. And this is caused by, effectively, the way this shader works... I think I've got it called shader. Yeah, the advanced cell shader. The way this works is it uses... Jesus, what's going on my screen? It just keeps flashing. The way the shader works... I got this from a tutorial. This isn't like something I came up with myself. I'm not that smart. It kind of uses the specular colour of a material to affect if it glows or not, rather than the emissive. Which is fine, for the most part. because I can't use the metallic. Won't really do much. If you notice, it just if I wanted to make like a metal object, it doesn't work because the way this material works, because it messes with how reflections and all that works. So the normal what you'd normally do if you want something to look like metals, you just use the material map, and there you go. Whereas this, if I want something to be more metal, it doesn't work that well to just use the material map. So instead, I do have somewhere something that's metal. Instead, I have to use the specular map, which I think... Did I do? No, I didn't do for them. It's kind of partly the reason why the enemies at the moment have this glowing white helmet face. Because... if I get fire shot here, show you how that one works as well. But the enemies have like the glowing face because of the way the shader is, which will be fixed later. Again, these are just temporary models, so I didn't bother fixing it. So every time with the fire shot perk, every time I hit the enemy, it runs a chance. It kind of rolls the dice, and there's a chance that they get set on fire and they start taking tick damage like that. At the moment, there's no effect for it, but there will be. Can go increase the accuracy, so now the bullet spread is a lot less random. And then if it should make it a lot easier to get headshots. And again, at the moment, the game is very easy because of the rate of spawning. I mean, they're all coming from one spawner at the moment as well, so it's just literally a shooting gallery. As well as the enemies literally die in like 2 hits, because again, this is mostly for testing purposes. Just to make sure the system work, and then I can tweak the difficulty. Any second now. I just want to get to wave 5 where the ranged enemies are going to start spawning. How many enemies are left in this wave, man? Okay, there we go. Let's increase the health. So now the ranged enemies should start spawning in. As well as the Abyssal tank. Here we are. Yeah, so they're shooting now. So basically what these enemies will do is they will teleport either in or just outside of the player's field of view, just to like the right or left. And they'll teleport, they'll shoot, and they will teleport again. And they'll pick a random height, they'll pick a random location that they can reach. Because Unreal Engine really doesn't actually have much in terms of flying enemy UI. Honestly, it's a very crude system that I had to like came up with. Because AI works at the moment by picking a path along this pathfinding mesh. And the way that I've had to handle flying AI in the past for my short game for a game jam which I didn't finish on time called The Esteemed Thief was the same system where basically they would find a point along the floor and then pick a random height off that point and then go towards that point. And it works. It does work, but it's... Ideally, what you would just have them do is just pick a random point in kind of the air itself. But yeah, it doesn't. So this is the best I could work with. Which again, it works very, very well. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I really should go over before I start working on something. Because obviously we've got all the enemies, we've got the tasks for the enemies, the damage system. Yeah, I'll probably go over that. So I've made a damage type called player damage, and basically what this will do is it inputs the perk, switches on the integer, and depending on the tier level of fire shot, it will give a different chance percentage, which is a chance is its own function here, which is basically just random chance. Chance percentage, and if it's in the random integer, basically, if it's higher or lower. So let's say this comes with 30. As long as that 30 is within that chance percentage. So if it's got a 50% chance, anything 50 or lower will activate the effect. And it's got it's basically the exact same system for vampire damage. Actually, wait, no, it's not vampire. I forgot. Vampire damage isn't chance based. It's every time you hit, but it's a very small amount of health. So basically, every time you hit an enemy, depending on if you have vamp damage, you will get a bit of health back from them. I guess the final thing to go over is more like the theming and kind of story of the game. There's not really much of a story, but there is a bit of theming. There is a bit of all of that. So with this game, it's going to be called, at the moment, its current name is Abyssal Plane. And effectively, it's going to be a big is going to be kind of taking place in a ultimate dimension called the Abyss, which has got bits and bobs from like our reality in this reality, and all of the enemies are called, like, you've got the Abyssal Walker, which are just the regular melee enemies. At the moment, they're just called enemy in the game. The Abyssal Towers, which are the teleporting ranged enemies, and Abyssal Tank, which are the big enemies. And it's going to be... Don't want to spoil too much of the story, because I might it's up for change, because it's still in development. And spoilers. But basically, all the enemies are going to be like this kind of ghostly soul-like enemy. Which is why I gave all the the melee enemies this purple effect. I wanted to see if I could get like some kind of particle effect like that. That would look alright. Which is going to go basically along on the model of the final enemy model, which I've still got to make. Which I do want to make, but I'm not the best at modelling. I used to model in Blender. No, I used to model in 3ds Max when I was at uni. That was a software which is great for 3D modelling, but not so great for game development, because a lot of its feature set isn't focused at that. Maya would have been the better thing for us to use, but we didn't use it. I did try and learn Maya in my free time, and I did learn it. The problem is that it's a very expensive software. And I could barely find the time to sit down and use it. So I ended up switching to Blender, which I'm still kind of in the process of learning. I've got most of it down, it's just rigging, animating, and UV unwrapping is still kind of new to me on that software compared to 3ds and compared to Maya and compared to 3ds Max especially, because I was a game design student for 5 years, from college all the way to uni. Graduated. I've got a a bachelor's in game design. which is so far not really done me too much. But it's a work in progress. So, but with what I learned a lot of stuff from that course, which has helped me. I learned how to use Unreal there. I learned how to use 3ds Max and the basics of 3D modeling. And my mic's peaking. I need to lower that a bit. But what I didn't learn is how to actually. We didn't learn a lot of like the releasing a game part, which we didn't learn a lot of. There's a lot of stuff we did learn, a lot of stuff we didn't. And again, the one thing I really wish we did learn was either Blender or Maya, because Maya is the industry standard, and Blender is the free alternative. 3ds Max is used occasionally, but as far as I can tell, it's mainly Maya. So I don't really know why they taught us 3ds Max. Considering as well, we had access to Maya because of we had like the Autodesk education package, so we could have used Maya, but we didn't. We got told to use Max, so we used Max. And then I finished uni, and Maya doesn't have a cheap alternative. No, Maya does. Maya has Maya for Indies, whereas 3ds Max doesn't. 3ds Max is £2,000 a year. I'm not paying that, and I'm also not pirating it, because if you pirate a software like that and it gets found out, it's a big problem. Not doing that. So I played it safe and just used Blender instead. Well, actually, no. I did actually buy Maya for Indies for about half a year or so. I was subscribed to that for I think about a year. I'm not sure. And I was learning that, and it was going well. But the problem was, I found that unless I was going fully into 3D modeling, which I wasn't. I'm going into the more game design side. The use case for it is very situational. Most of the time you don't need it until you're modeling something, obviously, or animating something. And to be paying for a software focused on modeling for all of that time when a big chunk of the game isn't just modeling felt like a bit of a waste. So I switched to Blender instead because it was much cheaper. And that's what I've been using ever since. And also, Blender is actually really good now. I remember quite a few years ago, it was still fairly early stages. Now it's really good feature set. It's a lot of things on Blender are really easier to do than they ever were on 3ds Max. But yeah. So, the plan for today. Now that I've kind of given an introduction to the game and where I'm at with it, is to keep working on it. Of course, keep working on it is a very vague term. Which is why I have actually got a Trello. Because we always need a kind of to-do list of what we're doing. And currently on that, I've got playtest adjust a map. And removing the drop-down section of the map. So if I go back to the map, first person, maps, map 1, save selected. So on here, the problem I've got is that it's a problem I've encountered. So at the moment, you got all the sections are kind of laid out, and all the spawners are linked and set up. So if I go to this section, enemies will spawn here if the door's open there, if the door's open there. The problem I've got is if we go here. Because what I wanted to do was have this kind of drop-down section here where you could either jump and get over here, or drop down and go here. It was to kind of give it a bit more of a interesting way of navigating, because you can effectively skip this area if you want to just go like there. However, you can't get up there without going down there from this side. It kind of makes this area a bit of a, like, you've got one exit, which is this teleporter, which is going to be an elevator shaft, which will bring you out here, and then you go in this one to go over here. The problem with that is it's kind of... It's 8. Except for the fact that if I have an enemy here... Actually, I think the best way would just be to show it. I think... Yeah, the invisible walls are set up. There's a lot of invisible walls at the moment because, again, it's still prototype. So if I... Can enemies even spawn in here? They can, but because I spawn in the... So kind of one of the interesting ways the spawning system works is that by default this one will be the active. Because when you spawn inside of a volume, it doesn't count as you overlapping it to start with. So if I untick those for now and go over here and basically set this to be the default. Go here. And we should be spawning there now. Enemy should be spawning there now. God, this is where I find out nothing works. Why is it spawning you in? You shouldn't be spawning until way later. No, wait, those really shouldn't be spawning in yet. Oh, God, why? Okay, let's see what the problem is. First person, blueprints, game mode. Have I set the game state to be wave 5 or something? Let's drag these out. Drag this out. Yeah, the current wave is 1. And on the game mode, the wave number is 1, the current wave... Everything's 1. So why the hell are they... Or did I have one left in? Did I just leave him in? Hang on. Ah, that's why. Because he's just here. He's just vibing. But that should... This is the active spawner. This should be spawning enemies, but it's not. Okay, now it is. See? Alright, whatever. Don't know what you have. Oh, hang on a minute. Is it because these are... Right. Yeah, because the code also doesn't... I remember now. I also have to set this as accessible, active. Forgot about that. Because by default, again, being spawned in here doesn't activate the code to select all the barriers, and I didn't, so that'd be why. There we go. So yeah, the problem I run into is if I open this, jump down, he can never follow me. And there's 2 approaches to this. There's 2 approaches to this. One is I teach these enemies how to jump down here or here, depending on where the player goes. Or 2, I get rid of the area and it make it a lot easier myself. Can you guess what I'm going to go with? Considering it's such a small element of the game, and it really doesn't add anything. It really doesn't make it any better. It really doesn't improve it in any way. It's just... I think it would just be a lot easier to get rid of it and just maybe rework it so there's like a big windy path down here that also can go here. Or just have it so you're forced to go through the teleporter, and then there's a windy path from here down to there. Because as much as I would like to have this jump, I have no idea how on earth I'd go about getting that to work. And trying to look up stuff like that in the tutorial does not go too well. YouTube is probably the best tool for learning game development. Genuinely, it is full of amazing tutorials. It is also full of awful tutorials. And it's really hard to know which ones are which. One common thing I see a lot of tutorials do, and this is like a quick kind of tidbit tip, is damage. There's a lot of tutorials that handle damage in the worst way I think I know how. Because what they will do is they will do... If I go like, just make a new like testing. What they will do is this. They will do a line trace. Just pretend this is going forwards. They'll do a line trace. They will get a... Then they'll do a cast to, let's say, enemy. And it'll be like the out... split struck pin. Out hit actor. And then they will do like, for as enemy, get health. Well, I've got mine status component. Get status component. And then get health. Minus 10. And then set health. And I've seen some tutorials that will do like dealing damage like this, and a lot of people will think this is fine. And it is if you only ever plan on having one enemy in your entire goddamn game. Because the minute you have more enemies, the minute you have any edge cases, like, let's say, oh, I want to destroy a barrel. Well, now you've got to have a thing that will tell it, oh, cast to the barrel. Because this only casts to the enemy. It will get the out hit object, and if it's an enemy, it will cast. If it's anything else, let's say if you've got another enemy called ranged enemy, it won't detect it unless you've made that ranged enemy a subclass of enemy. So what you really should do is do a damage. Not that one. A damage, no. Where is it? Apply damage, that's the one. Which you can then just feed any actor in. Doesn't matter what the actor is. And it will send over the signal of damage. You can even change the class. So if I did player damage, could do all the, you can change the class of damage, which can have various effects depending on what you set up. You can give it the damage causer, the grenade. You can do the damage instigator, which would be a reference to self here. Nope. Should be. Oh yeah, because it's not a character, it's an actor. So yeah, this would be like the grenade that dealt the damage. And you can just adjust how much damage you can do here, which you can just promote to a variable and change down here. And then what this will do is when you want to receive damage, you do event any damage, or event point damage, events radial damage. And this fires off any time this happens to this object. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to have any object in your world, you can make any weapon hit any object by just making it so it can make sure it collides with it first. This will only work if it can collide with it. That's the main problem. But you can make it that set up so all you need to do is add this, is show off how much damage it does, and then you can just handle the health code in the thing rather than on the weapon itself doing a cast to the enemy, deal the damage, cast to this enemy, deal that damage, cast to this enemy, deal that damage. Because what you really shouldn't be casting as much as that. It's kind of heavy on the PC. And it's also not a very dynamic way of going about it. What you really want to do, especially with blueprints, is you want to make it so the code you can do can be easily tweaked and configured for later use. That's why I've got all of my health code for enemies and players alike in a status component, which I made. Wherever the hell it is. I think it's because I imported it from a different project that I made. That's the parkour component. The parkour component is the system I use for sprinting, sliding, crouch slide, all that stuff. Here it is, status component. And what this allows you to do is where you link it. I can link it to the enemy on the character, and if it's an enemy, it will get max health based on the round. I can kill the enemy from here. I can check. I can check if they've been healed. I can check the health of them. I can give them points. I also have the spawn damage number code in here because it spawns based on damage dealt in here. So I've made the spawner for it in here. It's a very, again, long and complicated part. And it will check the health. But what this allows me to do is, let's say, go back to this object. I want to add the stats component to it. Boom. Now this object, it has health. Now it has a current health. Now it has a damage. Now it has a how much damage it will take on fire damage. Has all this stuff. And the only thing I have to do in order to get it to receive damage would be effectively, I've got to plug it in so when the enemy receives damage, it sends that information over to the stats component. But because of this damage effect interface I've got here, where it does a player effect, it does a bit more than that. There's a bit more in between, but it's all it basically is. If you want a simple damage system, is feed it into the character, and it works. It works very well, and it's a lot more drag and drop than any system I've found. But a lot of tutorials, there's a decent amount, and it's not just like one or two. There's a good amount of tutorials that are there, like, here's how you fix. Here's how you damage an enemy. You cast to the enemy. That's the worst way of doing it. Do not do that. Unless you only plan on having one type of enemy in your game. Don't cast directly to the enemy to deal damage. Unless you've got one type of enemy, or you've got one enemy, or you've got one kind of main class of enemy. If everything comes under an enemy class that you then make child classes of, then that would be fine. But the minute you have everything separate, the minute you have any kind of the minute you have anything really, the minute you have multiple classes of enemies, because I have to have that. I don't have to, but I have that. Because all these enemies are going to have very different behaviours. The melee enemy is just, your simple finds the target, move to, when he gets close, he moves at a slower speed and does an attack. Whereas the tank enemy, it's got this whole, it's going to do what the melee does. but it's also gonna have this cooldown, which at the moment is a lot lower than it will be. But it's got a cooldown here, which will basically tell it, okay, I'm gonna charge at this guy now. And first person elements, character, materials, mesh. Yeah, I've really got to figure out what's going on with that monitor. Because every time I do anything on here, it's just turning off. Which is bad, because that's the monitor with my chat on. And the monitor with my stream, so I can see if it's working. So yeah, that's not good. So yeah. So, plan today. I've got to figure out a way I could rework this to get rid of this drop, because again, it doesn't really work. I mean, I know the way I can rework that part. It's just we do this. We get this. We go zip, and we get this, and we go. Yep, there we go. Problem solved. The main problem is how do we get from here to here. Now that might actually, I might be able to have the enemies jump up if I can figure out how they would do that. I don't know enough about AI to do that at the moment. So for now, move that invisible wall there. Extend that one out a bit. So for now, we're going to have a windy little path. Also, I know this isn't the best way of blocking out, but it is what it is. Now what it is shit. That might be a bit too much of a lip. I'm trying to get rid of that lip. There we go. Little windy paths will go down here. I need to have change that to the world. So let's do bang. This is just temporarily for now. I will redo this because this is not good level design. I don't think that lines up at all. If I go off. There we go, that's a lot easier. There we go. One thing I've never really been too amazing at is level design. It's something I've definitely got to get better at. Because my level design at the moment, as you can see, is pretty... it's there. It's definitely a level. For now, this is just going to be an open plane. I'll resort this in a little bit. This is just a solution to get this map in a more playable state, because this isn't really what I want to focus on this devlog. this development time, whatever you'd call these dev streams. Expand that like that. Put that there. Put that there. Bam! The worst map you've ever seen. Now I've got to get all the spawners set up. But for now, I'm not. Oh, again, this is just a temporary path, so I'm not going to put spawners there. Do you put some invisible walls there? We'll just at least make it so you can get past down there. There we go. And go to P, so you can see the pathfinding. Raise that up. There we go. It's functional. Yay! Oh, one other thing that I've encountered. So when I was testing this a while back, I found that this section here had a bit of a problem. And what that was is this path, this gets removed in gameplay. And as you can see now, the pathfinding updates all the time. Before, it would only update when it was like placed in the editor. The minute you were in play, it wouldn't update at all. And the problem that caused was you had this gap here where this block would be in the pathfinding, and you can kind of see it's got a bit of a gap now because enemies can't go there because it's blocking away. But it would never go back without changing a setting in the project settings, called like redraw navigation mesh or something along those lines. So if you're doing anything like this where you're going to have an object that will get moved out the way, make sure you turn that on or have it somewhere in a blueprint to redraw the map, the nav mesh, because otherwise the enemies aren't going to know how to get past a invisible object that's no longer there. Because what ends up happening is they would go to these walls here, and they would just kind of start swinging at this wall because they couldn't figure out how to get over this like little gap on the bridge. So you're probably wondering about like kind of what the fuck is this map? Like, what am I looking at? These are going to be like floating islands in like a purple kind of void known as the Abyss. And these are going to be very fragmented parts of our kind of world. So this will be like, you can have like this here. This is going to actually be an office block, like a whole ass skyscraper tower looking thing, filled with office furniture that's all floating, and going to be random like piles, random bits and objects from our world are basically going to make up this plane, because it's gonna. The story kind of ties into it a bit and it explains it a bit better. But that's kind of the vibe this is going for, which is why everything's these big floating platforms connected by these kind of sliver planes. The reason I also did that is kind of for the map design. I thought it'd be nice to have these like big kind of areas to kind of train the enemies, kind of loop around them and kill them. And then you can have these sliver platforms to get to other areas of the map, which are dangerous to go across. But the map's also designed in a way where it is possible to kind of loop around the map in a way so you can kind of have the enemies constantly behind you throughout the entire map. So you can use the whole map as your like looping spot, or you can loop around an area, or if you want, there's also going to be a few spots where you can kind of camp. The main one is going to be over here in this like kind of area. You can kind of sit here and camp. I might make a few other spots that are mainly made for people who like sitting in a corner and shooting enemies coming at them, because I know there's quite a few people who do that. I might make it here. I might have like a little side room here or something. This is why the map's still in it. The map is in very early stages. That's why I've not made any models for it or anything really. I am looking at starting to make models for it, but for now it is just block out, because I haven't actually really tested this map much. But as you see, I've still got some problems with the AI I'm still trying to work out. Such as, and that's kind of going to be one of the focuses for this time, getting this big boy to actually know what a wall is. Tag enemy, apply damage, enemy montage, stop, charge hitbox. If it contains hit players, no, applies damage, knockback. Enemy montage, component, doing damage, begin play, damage. I did have. This is that's why. See ya. Yeah, so hit a wall is set. I think it was in here I was trying to set it. Oh, here's the animation montage. So we've got the wind up animation, which is here. Launches the character forwards, which is what gives it the charge. Stops the charge. Where did I have it so it could hit a wall? Or did I get rid of it? Because... hit wall. I think I got rid of it because it never worked. Seems like it, yeah. So the problem I've got is that the collision is an overlap at the moment. This box here is an overlap. But for a... and it can collide with... It should block the world static and dynamic. So if I go back to my testing map, nope. Oh, where the hell is it? There it is. Yep. Nope, that's the current map I'm on. Here. So if I go back here and let's spawn them up here so we can't move. First person. You might still be able to charge actually. Content, enemy, visual tag. Drag this man out. As far as I know, I can't. So he'll do that still. So I don't collide with this because it's only world static and things that do. But and also it turns off when he's not charging. Because when he's charging, it gets that collision and enables it. But what it should do, because at the moment it's only got a begin overlap, but I don't think it overlaps with a wall, which is the annoying part. Yes, because at the moment it will print hello when it overlaps. So when it hits me, you should see at the top left, it'll say hello. Yep. Actually says it 3 times because it collides 3 times. But if we put him against, like... If we get, like, a block... that in the way. You see how it doesn't have any messages? Because it doesn't count a overlap against this is a problem that I've ran into several times. Overlaps don't work against things like the ground. Even if I was to set this to overlap, I don't think it will work. Let's try it though. Yeah. So things like that never seem to work. So, and blocking doesn't really work either. Unless maybe if I do on component hit. See if that will print anything. Problem is it sometimes hits itself. Nope. Why? Why? You've literally got... It's told to block it. Why are you not blocking it? This has got... Can I see what collision this has got? Okay, we're going to do this. We're going to test... Make a new test object. Test boy. What this is going to be, it's going to be a cube. That's not what I meant to put in. It's a cube. And this cube has got... So this has got block all dynamic. It's going to have a custom collision. It's just going to block everything. That's what it's going to do. Oh, and the object. So as you see here, this is able to block world static and world dynamic, and this object has got a default, the collision type of world dynamic. Yep, world dynamic. So in theory, this should work. Also, it's glowing. My eyes. Jesus, I'm gonna change the material on that. There. That's funky looking. We're just gonna go for... Translucent. Whoa, that's cool. Alright, that's our cube. Still no. Is it because he's too close? Nope, that's the wrong one. Drag him back a bit. He's going to aim at me. Work. Or not. So yeah, those things just never seem to bloody work. I don't even want him to stop. I just want him to have a ping whenever he... You know. Sorry, a bit tired. Early morning. I just want him to at least recognise that he's hitting something. But he's not. Charge. Yeah, so literally on the component hit. At the moment, its enemy is the kind of object type. What if I put this to world dynamic? What's it do then? Because I feel like it's going to collide with him. Yeah, didn't think that'd work. Why? There's no reason why it shouldn't be blocking. Can I get it to overlap with it? Oh! Wait a minute. Okay. That actually overlapped. The problem is that I've had to make that an object that it will overlap with. If I was to do this, who won't overlap? What do these default as? Because I don't really want to have to go around and make every single object in my level a different actor. Because that would be stupid. That would be very stupid. Because that would just make everything... Making everything an actor is just unreasonable. So I need to kind of tell it to do it against just normal static meshes. But static meshes should, you know, automatically default to being... You know, what? Enemy... What? Collision type is a static mesh in Unreal. Oh god, the Unreal Engine documentation is good, but it's so long-winded. Alright, so we gotta go find... So browse to asset, open up the static mesh, and then we go to... Yeah, so its collision preset is world static block all. And if it blocks something, it should be able to activate hit events. So why doesn't it work when you hit event? Why isn't it working when I do this hitbox as a hit event? Could change that to sup. We're gonna... God, that's bright. We're gonna have... Change that to sup. Make the charge hitbox block world static and world dynamic. And try that again. And it just doesn't work. Why? And I've just opened up Discord by accident. Why doesn't that work? Unreal Engine on hit won't hit objects. Scene route? Yeah, I have no idea how to get this to work. I can't seem to find any way of getting this to work. But the collision itself is there. These objects have collision. But it's not doing a hit event, even though it's hitting it. Alright. Plan B. This is just to see if this will even work. It's got a charge hitbox. Overlap only works on world setting and world dynamic. If what if I just tell it to overlap all these channels? Nope. What if I just tell it to overlap everything but enemy? Nope. Of course. Why would that work? Yeah, I've got no idea how to get this to work, honestly. It just doesn't seem like it's gonna. Which means I gotta find a workaround. I have an idea. It's stupid, but it might work. What if I do a line trace? Just gotta remember how to do a line trace going directly forward from the character. Forward rotation, forward vector. Line trace component. No. Line trace by channel. We're going to do get actor location. Just to start. And then we get the forward vector. Get after mesh. So get the world rotation. Get forward vector. Multiply that. Do that by... We'll go 500. Doesn't need to be super big. And then... times that. That's actually a bit too big. Times up by 200. Make sure it can't hit itself. Make an array. Put that in there. I think that's all I need to do. I need to add these together. And for now, I'll just do event tick, just so I can see where this is going to come out of. Apparently nowhere. Did I do a debug? I thought I did. Ah, no, I didn't. For duration. And it comes out sideways. Okay, if we get the arrow then. And try that. Why is that an error? Get forward rotation. Then we get the forward vector. How about that? Nope, that's still an error. And my compiler results aren't showing up. It's not blueprint visible. Why? Okay. We get the capture component. Boom, bang. Try now. Yay, there we go. And we're just going to have it on hit. On out blocking hit, print. Print string, hoy. Okay, so that works. The problem with that is I think it will also activate if I'm in front of it. Nope. Jesus, he went flying. But what if I have another enemy in front of him? Melee. If I put him like right there, where he'll be in the trace response, what would he say then? Yeah, thought so. Wait, so why does it ignore me? Oh, you can just tell it to ignore stuff. You don't need to add that. Okay. So I can have it so this can appear when it's only charging by just having a boolean saying like event tick, is he charging? Now he can do it. The main thing is trying to get it so he only... I've got an idea on how to do that. We're going to go project settings. Collision. Somewhere down here. There it is. And we're going to have a new object channel. Called... Charge. This is probably the worst way I could think of doing this, but that's what it's going to be called. And all we've got to do is make sure... Get rid of that. All I've got to do is make sure enemies who have their own collision will just ignore this charge. And now if I go back to the tank and set this trace channel, compile and then set. Huh. Okay, weird. New trace channel. Charge. Block. Yep, okay, that's a duplicate name. Because that's shouldn't exist. New trace channel. Charge. Block. Okay. Now we can change this to the fuck. It's right. It's right there. There we go. Charge. Change the enemy to ignore charge. So now, if I get an enemy and put him in front, it shouldn't come through as hitting him. It comes through as hitting him. Why? Is it one? Oh, right. It's probably the other hitboxes on the enemy, isn't it? Yeah. So ignore. 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 Is there any other hitboxes I should know about? Ignore. Okay, let's try this again. There we go. Hang on, does that actually work? Why is there another enemy on top of him? Piece off. Yeah, okay, so now he's just completely ignoring it. And it'll hit the wall. So all I've got to do is make that a lot shorter. Go 50. See how far that comes out of him. We'll figure it out. Get out of here. Just make sure it can hit the wall, which it can. Cool. So now, this is what we're going to do. This is the really dumb... this is the dumb way of doing it, but it's working. So the way this code here cancels is if this hit wall blackboard key is set. So we just need to get... I think I can only set blackboard keys in the controller. Yeah. So what we're going to do is a custom event to... No, that's the wrong one. We need a custom event in the... God, I've got too many things open. Custom event in the Abyssal Tank controller. Get rid of the enemy one. Hit wall. Go back to the Abyssal Tank. Get the controller. Hit wall. I need to cast to it then. That can work, but it's not really the best. So for now, I'm going to do it. Wait, I thought I would have, when I set him up, did I not? On spawn, initialize, cast to Abyssal Tank controller. I might as well just make a reference to it. As Abyssal Tank controller, rename that to controller ref. Ref. Put that in there, compile, get rid of that. Straighten it out. Looks nice and less spaghetti. Get the controller, so rather than cast the controller, we can just get our reference, the 100 reference. And do hit wall. Because now we can go to our controller and we can set val we can get the blackboard and we can set a value as a bool. Now, the only thing with this, you have to make the key a literal name. So we have to make sure that it's hit wall. Spelled exactly the same, all caps, everything is case sensitive. So, make a literal name. Hit wall. Now, the only thing I have to do is make sure this trace only happens when I need it to. At the moment, it's taking place in here. It might be better if it takes place in here. So this is actually working, won't it? Hang on. So if I go print string, it's ya boy. Compile. Well, he's doing something. Why is he? Let's get rid of this for now. Okay, that does work. If I change that duration to 0.1. Okay, so that tick only happens whilst he's running the event. That's great. So now, rather than having it take place in the character all the time, we can have it just in the event. Perfect. So just copy all this stuff over. We've already got a reference to the character. To get the character reference, get the tank controller. All we gotta do is get the character reference, get the capture component. Get world location. No, it's rotation, isn't it? Got too many tabs. Get the world rotation. Get forward vector. Get all this stuff, put that there, put that there, drag that there. There's a simple case of get the act location. Might just be able to go Control C, Control V. Event tick executes that, and the act location is character ref. Kaboom! And that works. And it's got the charge channel set up. And now need to do that, and do that, and do that, and compile and see if that. So yep, he's got the little string, although it's still. It's counting as hitting because it hasn't got itself as a reference. Just because of where it's being drawn, so I've got to put in. And there we go. Wait, no, hang on, it's still come through as hoi, which means it's hitting something. Even though it shouldn't be. What are you hitting? Are you hitting yourself? Oh wait, no, it's because I changed how it. That's why. Because I didn't do a branch. Boom. Okay, that works. So now we have somewhat. It's getting there, guys. It's getting there. Let's go. The main thing it's got to do is just. I think I've already got it earlier in here where it can talk to the character ref. Mind you, since this is happening in the AI tree, it doesn't need to talk to the character controller to change the blackboard value. It can just change the blackboard value. Which means I can just do this. BB key. We want BB key. Blackboard key selector. Get BB key. Set that as the key. Set it to true. Put it in true. Kaboom, kaboom. And now, so when it hits something, it will set it as true. And because of the way this is set up, it should and this is already set up as the BB key is hit wall. So I just got to go in here and set that as this. Again, this is stuff that's like a bit finicky with tutorials. So we can change that to be hit wall. And now, hopefully, this bloody works. Yes! So now he does a little stunned animation if he hits the wall. The only thing I've got to keep in mind with that is to make sure he can't hit anything else that he's not supposed to. It's very I need to turn the mic down a bit. It's a very real chance that what can happen now is that he will collide with things that he's not supposed to collide with. So I'm gonna have to keep a note of that. But this system works. Is it perfect? No. Code never is. At least not my code. Not this spaghetti. That's another thing as well that I never really learned at uni, which I was kind of surprised that we never learned, but I see why. Because I did game design, we never actually learned how to code. I only know blueprinting, which is fine for the most part. Most of what I'm doing, you can do a lot in blueprints. Blueprints are very powerful, and it's getting more and more updates and functionality all the time. There's very little you can't do in blueprints in one way or another. The problem is that you have all of these blueprints, and most, like, it's a lot harder to get things to work the way you want them to, because you've got to find the right box for it. You can't just make your code. You got to find the functions for it. But at the same time, it's a lot lower barrier to entry. It's a really easy way of learning and starting making games. You can make something pretty awful. I wonder if I've still got the project files for it, but Somewhere is one of the first games I properly made whilst at college. And it is literally just a maze where you just point and click. And you pick up a key. I don't think there's any enemies in it or anything. It's the most boring game ever. Because it was like the first thing it was like the first proper game I made. And a lot of my other projects from uni, unfortunately, I never actually finished. Most of them were very unfinished, broken messes, which was a shame. And a lot of that was due to not spending enough time on them. And getting distracted easily. Which is, again, what the whole point of this stream is, really so I can knuckle down and actually get game development done. Because what's happening a lot is, what I find is, I don't actually work on the game. I say, I'm going to sit down and work on game development. And I'll sit down and I'll spend ages on YouTube. and then I get literally nothing done. And I know this stream particularly, because it's more of like an introduction to the project and everything, it's not been the most productive thing. But in the later streams, it will be a lot more productive. I promise. But yeah. So that's working now. The enemy will get stunned if he hits a wall. And if he hits me, I might still get stunned because I don't think I've set up this trace response. Yeah. So I need to go to my character. Blueprints, first person character. And go through all of my collision. I need to set the trace response to default to be block. Because if I don't, the world objects, I won't be able to change that. I don't want that to have any collision. Same with... Alright, that should do the trick. There we go. Now he's going to do his big roar. Oh, one thing I should probably do for him as well is, whilst he's doing the charge player, because this will run whilst the event's active. If I do a branch and just get charging, true, but false. I feel like that should be the other way around. Hang on. If charging's true, set the charge montage. But he does like the wind-up montage, then charging gets set to false, where it's a I feel like I've got those the wrong way around. Because charging should be true, then it gets set to false. No, wait. He's not charging here. He is charging here, and he's not charging there. Got it. But I only want that of the... And that's not working. Abyssal Tank. Charge player. When charging, it's because I put it to false. It should be when it's true. When charging is true, it will do the line cast. So it shouldn't happen except for there. And then it will stop doing the cast. Perfect. Is that the most efficient way? Probably not. Is it a way that works? Yes. One thing that I learned as well is not to get super hung up about if it's the best way of doing things, because there's almost always a better way of doing something. But you need to just do it. It's better to get, like... Obviously, when you're trying to optimize the game, that's when you're going to focus on, is this the best way I can do it? But when you're just building the game up, if you get so hung up on redoing parts over and over and over and over again, making sure it's the best way of doing, let's say, a jump. Granted, if it's a platform, that's probably a good idea. But if it's like, you know, something fairly minor, like increasing or decreasing health, a core system, but at the end of the day, it's a very simple system. It doesn't really getting it in to begin with is better than just spending about a week just redoing it over and over and over again just to get it to be perfection. But yeah, it's see if the stream's still working. But yeah, it's yep, it is. Nice. Love it. I love that the stream is working. So what is there to do now? What should I do next? I fixed the Abyss Tank AI, where he can actually respond to the wall. The next thing is to make it so he only dashes when he has line of sight. Because at the moment, I could be like over here and this guy will dash. What he should be doing is he should only really dash if there's an enemy. He shouldn't... He shouldn't really be dashing at me when... Do I have it so it's automatically saves the VOD? I can't remember. Anyway, he shouldn't be dashing at me when he can't see me. But at the moment he can. So let's try and fix that. So at the moment it's just got a cooldown. And there's going to be a blackboard for... The only thing I've really got to do is make it so he has line of sight, and I just can't remember how to do that. Time to use Google. Pawn sensing component. Oh yeah, that thing that I was avoiding. Okay. Well, I know how to do it. So, content, enemy, abyssal tank. We're going to go to A. Animate, artificial intelligence, and AQS. Line of sight. So we're going to get current location. Because this will basically be the same kind of thing that the ranged EQ... Because the ranged guy has got an EQS. I think it's in tasks. Yeah, so find... So axis of clash, generate... So, abyssal tank... I think it should be the EQS. Line of sight. Current location of query. Add test. Trace. To player context. From the player at this location. Require hit. What this should do. No, because this is... I need pawn sensing. That's what I need. So we go viewport, we go pawn sensing. Now we have this laggy thing, Jesus Christ. And what this is so on Seapawn, so enemy, Unreal Engine 5.
Hey guys, and welcome back.
Just mute that. There's a really good video for this from Unreal themselves somewhere. Check to see if player is visible. There's a way you can do it where once they lose line of sight, they stop chasing. But I can't remember how. Because it's been so long. It's been so long. Unreal Engine AI tutorial. If I search that in nowadays, you're gonna get a bunch of stuff about like, oh, this is how you use ChatGPT, which I'm not really too interested in. Here it is. AI perception. Has target. Where is it? I mean, I can do it on AI on target. Let's see. Report perception event. Request pawn perception event. On C pawn. Black. Do you need that as a controller? I need it on the controller. So this has got pawn sensing. There's nothing on network client. That's fine for now because we're not using network clients. On Seaporn, print. Hello. That's what we're going to do for now. And the one thing I want to know is... God, this site radius is massive by default. So if I'm around here, he shouldn't be able to see me. He's going to turn to me. Yeah, he's going to say hello, 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 hello. And the question is, if I get a enemy and drop him in, will it still come up as he sees an enemy? If I just drag this out so he can't ever see me? Or the better idea is just to simulate it. I don't think so. Nope, seems to be alright. Oh, that's a lot of errors. Jesus. Alright, so... It might be because he ignores classes, I don't know. But that works fine for me. So then we want to get the controller ref, set black, get blackboard, set value as... I would just do a true value. So when it sees the pawn... But how do I get it to... I guess I'll just do a delay. Unreal Engine. How to check if enemy no longer has line of sight. Break info, Landscape Simuli. Oh my god. That's a lot. That's a lot. On pawn sensing, which is what I've got. Simple way. Since I'm scanning every 0.1, I put a delay of 0.25 seconds in. So yeah, sequence might be the best way. Sequence. Nah. Well, for now, I'll just do it so... There is a proper way of doing this, I just can't remember it, and I don't really want to spend the whole time just looking up on a different monitor where you guys can't even see. So... Unreal Engine break line of sight AI. There was a really good tutorial on this at one point. I just can't remember what the hell it is. The easy way. Sensing. Yeah, everyone's just doing a re-triggerable delay of like 0.5 seconds for not seeing the enemy. I really don't feel like that's a good way of doing it, though. Unreal Engine AI chase player on site. Nah. Alright, well, I'm just going to go it the crude way for now, and again, later on, I can always do it a better way. So, for now, it's going to be on C, set value as bool, be a sequence. There is a proper way of doing it, so that it will check if it's still got line of sight. And after a delay of I'm going to do it ever so slightly different. So set timer by event. This is the way I'm going to do it. Because what this should do is this will update every so often. I can see him, I can see him, I can see him, I can see him, I can see him. I've got the make literal name. I need to also go to the blackboard and actually add the value in. Make new key, bool, can see player. Save, go back to the tank. Can see player. And I gotta make sure I spelt that right. Get rid of that, get rid of that. Yep. Compile, save. Move that down there, move that down there, that there. Bit of little random coding here. So what I'm going to do is get rid of this sequence, don't need it. It's going to set the bool, and it's going to set timer by event of 0.5. And this will be a custom event called can see player. I'm going to give it a half-second cooldown. And what this should do, I'm going to put a no C in there, and C here. So what I want it to happen is, nope, select a viewport. So C, 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 no C. You shouldn't be coming up with no C at all. To put it to 1. That should stop that, hopefully. Yeah. Because basically, if I'm hidden from him for 1 second, it'll go no see and it'll stop. Because basically, I think what that event does as pawn sensing is this will update every 0.5 seconds by the looks of it. Or probably on like some amount of ticks, but it seems to be every 0.5 seconds. And by doing this timer, rather than having it go, I can see you, I can't see you, I can see you, I can't see you, I can see you, I can't see you, it will just go... This, when you rerun this event, it basically will reset the timer on it. Rather than just outright deleting it. So what's happening... That it's kind of just completely... It's not running this event like where it's like making it so it can't see. So all we need to do now is do this. If Unreal Engine would play nice. Go down here. Put that there. Connect that to that. Can see player. Boom. And that should be that sorted. So now if I go back to the behavior tree. Oop, lagging. Starting to lag really bad. Would you believe that this computer has a 3080? Because sometimes it doesn't feel like it on Unreal. We want to add a decorator of a blackboard value. And this should only be active if can see player is set. Now, unlike the cooldown, I'm not gonna have it abort. I don't want it to abort anything if it can see the player. The cooldown will be the one where it will abort. Lower priority if... Oh, actually, will that cause a problem? If I can't be... I wonder if that's going to cause a problem. I'm wondering now. So if I go... here... Just wait a second, will there... There's a way of ejecting the camera. How do I do that again? Unreal Engine eject camera. F8. So if I do here, F8. Yeah, so he's just doing his normal attack. And then if I was to get rid of... Can I not? And if I was to get rid of... Make a little gap. And go here. So what he do is charge. And then what I want him to do is he should come around this wall and only charge when he's round the wall. What the hell did I put a cooldown on that? I might need to actually, rather than have it... Maybe I need both as a abort lower priority. Yeah, that works. Right, so now when it's either he comes around the corner or when he goes over the wall, that's when you'll abort it. Cool, that works. Kind of. Again, is it the best way? Probably not. I might need to mess with the vision and stuff later. But for now, he won't launch at me unless he's actually looking at me, which is good. Because the problem is that he's just gonna be like charging at nothing. And it's just not gonna feel very good to fight against. That's another thing off the list. Next thing is making sure he responds properly to perks. I think he already does. Bullets don't. Yeah, fire shot. Let's try this on him. That kind of messed up the wave. This is one of those games where if you spawn things in at the wrong time, it really messes up the systems. But as far as I know, he does have responses to both fire and he should be able to respond to fire fine. I did have a method for testing adding it, but I don't think I've still got that over here. Yeah, as part of the perk system. The perk system's a big, messy mess. Tell you what, we're going to add a new perk in. That's what we're going to do today. That's the last thing we're going to do. We're going to add a new perk. Because at the moment, we have got all of these. And I want to add a perk in which stuns enemies. Because at the moment we've got haste, buff bullets. I've called a lot of them bullets, but you're not actually going to have a weapon. It's going to be like more like psychic blasts from your hands. So I'm going to have to rename some of these. So we're going to add in a new perk. Rename it on the row. And it's going to be called Stun Shot. Because I can't think of a name. And that's Stim. Stun Shot. Description. How big of a percentage should we go? I say we have a... Well, fire shot at the moment has like a... It doesn't even tell you how many, but the percentages. But I think it's like a 10% chance. So I think we'll go for a 10% chance. Up to 50%. So 10%. 10% chance to stun enemies. And it's going to have 5 tiers. And so it'll go up to 50%. So get blueprint, first person content. Enemy melee. So melee, no. Where am I looking? First person blueprints, skill system. So that's the perk data. The perk table structure is all set up. The thumbnail, I think I set that in here. Stun shot just needs to be temp. There we are. And that's all we really need to add for that. Next we go to UI. No, next we go to the skill system component. Add perk. No, that actually should be alright. Query perk is also alright. What we really need to do is go to the first person character. Blueprints. First person character. So at the moment, all of the skills are in this massive update where everything's got its own function for updating. Depending on the perk, actually. Because vampire bullets... Even that updates here. Because that has a vamp level tier. Fire shot is the only one at the moment that doesn't actually update in here. Because it's a % chance to happen. So I actually handle that in the damage effect interface. No, in player damage. I handle all of that in this, where fire shot is, because I just because there's no point setting it when it's like, so I just query it when it's needed. So I'll probably actually I'm just basically gonna copy this. So we just, and this is what I mean, like with a lot of blueprinting, if you find a system that works for one thing, you can get it to work for a lot of other things. So if we just rename that to stun shot, pin that in there, and then all we need to do is change the perk it queries to stun shot. And this has also got 5 tiers, which literally this is set up. The only thing that needs to change is this. We get the enemy status component. And what we do here, we don't want to start the fire effect, we want to start a stun effect. Which we've got the stats component going through, the type, the player. Now, so the way that a stun would work, and this is kind of the main problem we're going to run into, is stuns would need to happen at the AI level. They need to happen in here. Because what's basically going to happen is, it's effectively a behavior. It's going to happen in between here and here. Because before then, if they get stunned, they need to stop whatever they're doing and go in a stun animation, which means it needs to happen inside this little bit here, which is fine, except for the fact that at the moment this is set up, my player damage is set up to talk to the stats component, and the stats component I don't think is set up to talk to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in should be able to. Actually add in a new thing to that somewhere. First person, blueprints, damage. Got damage, player damage. If I close that and reopen it. Nope. Where is it? Yeah, it's just trigger a player effect. This. So if I go add in an input for enemy ref. Actually, it'd be even easier if it's the enemy controller. Enemy control. Enemy controller. Object times controller. If we go AI controller. I think that should be able to be inputted. So we should be able to go back to play. Yep, enemy controllers there. If we go back to the Abyssal Tank, trigger player effects. I'm hoping I can just get the controller ref, get controller ref. Yes! Okay, that works. So now what we can do is we can promote to variable. Okay, I don't need that. I need the local variable. Promote to local variable called controller ref. I've got caps lock on. Nope. Can budge that over there, budge that there, but zoom in here, so connect that to that. Go in here. Now I can get the controller ref. Get blackboard. Set blackboard value as bool. Make literal name. Go back to our blackboard. Make a name. Make a thing called stunned. Stunned. Set that to true. Plug all of the trues into this. Bing, bang, bosh, dosh, shush. Put that in there. Compile, save. Need to spell that wrong. Stunned, not sunned. Make sure double check against that. Stunned. Yep. The best way of doing that is actually just to copy and paste the name over, because then you just don't mess it up. Compile that, save that. And now the only thing. So the one thing I've got to do is I've got to go through every enemy, which is I've only got 3 of, so it's not so bad. And to be honest, this is why I'd want to do a lot of this as child and child of certain enemy types. So let's say you've got multiple melee enemies, you can probably just rather than having to retype all this and reconnect it in this case. So like now I've got to get the controller ref, which I haven't actually got here. So I've got to make a controller ref. Compile, save. And I can get controller ref here. Plug that in. And I could do the same with... Went too far back out. Could do the same with your missile tower. Event given play. Oh yeah, this one I don't actually have this whole initialize thing because it doesn't have a barrier. Also, wow, Unreal Engine's really starting to lag. Jesus. Stop it. Come on, only 10 minutes left of the stream. Play nice, you fucking asshole. Right. If I get begin play, initialize. And then we want to cast to controller. Cast to AI controller. No, we don't want to cast. We want to cast to tower. Cast to tower. Ranged AI tower controller. That's what it's called. Yep. And get controller. Compile. Make a reference. Is that my only? That's not my only variable, sure. Oh my god, it is. Ranged AI is actually really simple. Jesus, the one that you think would be more complicated. Controller ref. And yeah. Get the controller reference. Range AI tower, control ref. Compile that, save that. And plug that in. Get control ref, plug that in there. Compile, save. And I think that's about everything on this part. Yeah. I can close all these. Now we've got to create the task for it. And the good news is I should be able to use the same task for everything, hopefully. So we want to make a new task. And blueprint base. BT blueprint. BT task underscore stunned. Do you want to save that in tasks? Save. Execute. Event receive execute AI. And it's a very simple case of we received the event. Oop. Jesus, that's really laggy. It should just be a simple case of receive the event, play an animation, and wait. That's kind of it, really. It's just play an animation and wait. Now, the only problem I've got is the way I handled animations in this kind of sheet is a bit different than how probably most people do it. Because I tried to do it in a way that it would work multiplayer originally, and then I just kind of stuck with it because it seemed like a decent practice. But the problem is to really do anything with this control pawn node here, like any kind of custom event like that, or this, you need an enemy. You need the reference. And for that, you need to know which enemy it is, which unfortunately means that I'm probably going to need a different bloody event. The only other way would be... yeah, I could do that, but no. I mean, to be fair, the thing with making a stunned enemy is you basically just turning the AI off. So actually, I don't even know if I need an event necessarily. If I just go sequence and then just wait and just have this set on a condition of is stun set and aborts both. So basically, if the player's ever stunned, it will abort everything this side of it. That's all I really want to do. I just want it to stop the AI. Now, the way I handle animation on enemies is different for both enemy because I kind of did it differently. No, wait, no, here it is. Yeah, so it's a custom event on the enemy itself called anim montage. And then all it is they play an animation. But I could probably do a message. A message would be able to be universal. But I need to make an interface for that. But that might be a good way of doing it. Might remove the need to cast. Because the problem with casting from here to the blueprint is it can only cast to that one blueprint. So if I do the a cast to abyssal tank, it will only cast to abyssal tank rather than what I want it to do. Right, well, that's a problem for another time. It's just come up to 11:30, which is when I'm going to end the stream. Yeah, that's kind of the gist of what these streams are going to be. Hopefully it'll be a bit more it'll be a bit more dev, a bit more in-depth, and a bit more actually doing next time, because again, I won't be going over the project as much. But yeah, thanks all for watching, those of you who popped in. My name is Volteripal, and goodbye.